just found out I was holding my breath. So if I pass out, that's why. I was holding my breath. Welcome everyone to Neumont Live. My name is Melissa Nelson. I'm an admissions officer here at Neumont College of Computer Science. Today we're going to be talking about financial aid, all things financial aid. And today I've brought Nate Blanchard with me.
Hi everyone.
He is our Director of Financial Aid, so pleased to have you. Thank you for coming in.
Absolutely.
One of the biggest things I think that students struggle with is how to pay for financial aid. And in all of my years of education, I've been in education for well over a decade. Let's not talk about my age. But, how can people pay for school? And what makes the value of a bachelor's degree? Like, why do I need a degree? And that's the biggest, thing that people have to overcome is financial and how to pay for that. And so, a couple of things that I found. Here at Neumont, we are very specialized. And, when you're coming into computer science, you're actually getting into a field that is high in demand, first of all. And the second thing is that you can make a lot of money. So there's a high salary associated to that. There is a very big deficit into today's market for computer science. Here in America, we have 500,000 jobs available, and I believe we only put out about 59,000 students. Does that sound right?
There's a huge need for computer science graduates. Absolutely.
All right. And, here at Neumont, we actually have a career services department, right? And we are placing our students. Do you know what the average income is for our graduates?
I want to say the last report was right around the $63,000, $64,000 mark is the average. Am I close on that?
It's actually a little bit higher now.
Okay, that's good.
So averaging, we're going at $66,000 a year that our graduates are going out and making.
Right out of college.
Right out of college.
That's
so
amazing.
They're not going out as entry-level students. They're actually going more into that mid-level position.
Mm-hmm.
And really, what I'd like to kind of start with today is for you, Nate, sorry, can you tell us what is financial aid?
You bet. It's a pretty exciting topic. Not really. So it's kind of a challenging topic to discuss, and so sometimes families have some experience with financial aid. Other times they're brand new to it. Maybe this is the first student that they have going to college, or maybe the student themselves. This is their first experience with college, and so it can be pretty challenging. It can be a little bit intimidating, and that's what financial aid and our financial aid office is here to assist with. So financial aid is really discussing all of the different elements or options available for a student to pay for college. And there are quite a number of different options available, but they really can be grouped into a few categories. So when you think about the different ways to pay for college, you always hear about scholarships, right? Sometimes you may have even heard the term the Pell Grant or grants. And scholarships and grants are considered gift aid. That's just aid that doesn't have to be repaid, right? That's the free money.
Well, and we all like gifts.
Absolutely, absolutely.
We all like gifts.
And we want to get as much of that as we can. So the gift aid, if you can load up on scholarships and grants, that's great. But then there are also other elements. Now, hopefully, all of us have saved for college and saved for our kids' college, and we have some money set aside for that. And that's the best thing to use outside of the gift aid, because you don't have to pay interest on that. It's money out of pocket, but that way you don't owe anything. And then finally, we usually end up using student loans, and there are different types of student loans. But really, when we're talking about that, that's money that we're borrowing from someone in order to go to college, and we typically don't have to pay for it while we're in college, but then when we leave, we have to start making those payments and pay that off over time.
Okay. So let's go back, and, what I found is that most students are familiar with FAFSA. Can you explain what is FAFSA, who can apply for it, and how do people qualify for FAFSA?
Excellent. So the FAFSA is actually an acronym. It stands for the Free Application for Financial Aid. And so anyone can access the FAFSA, this application for financial aid. It's available. There's no cost associated with it. And that's kind of a big thing, because sometimes students or their parents might actually pay a fee to have someone help them fill out the FAFSA. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but just understand that that's what our office is here for. We can help them fill out the FAFSA. We don't charge for it. The FAFSA itself, that application, is in fact free. But what that's going to do is that's going to submit your information, your tax information. If you're a younger traditional student, you're just coming out of high school, it's going to require the parents' tax information also. And then the government does a calculation, and it's going to help determine whether or not you might qualify for some of the government grants or some of those government loans. And so that's what the FAFSA is doing. It's really determining eligibility for certain types of federal aid.
Okay. Now, big question here. I hear this a lot from students. What if they don't want to have their parents involved? Like, what are their options? You know, is that something that they can do? Can they do this without their parents?
You know, that's something that some more independent students are probably considering. They're saying, how can I do this without really involving my parents or guardian for one reason or another? And there are some opportunities when you don't have to include a parent or guardian. However, for most traditional students, in other words, students just coming out of high school, they're considered a dependent student for financial aid purposes. Now that means you're a dependent student even if you've been living on your own for the last year or two. Maybe you have a roommate, maybe you've been living by yourself and paying your own bills. You're still considered a dependent student for financial aid purposes, with some exceptions. And so for most of those, a parent or guardian has to be involved.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, tell me, what would constitute being considered an independent or a dependent?
There's a few guidelines that you can look for. So first of all, if you're over age 24, you're considered an independent student. So
I hit that a few years ago.
That's the main one, and that's the one that most students look for. Hey, once I hit 24, I'm now considered independent for financial aid purposes. I don't need to mess with mom and dad's taxes. But there are some other things as well. So if you have full-time military service, that can qualify one as an independent student. If someone was an orphan or a ward of the court at one point, that can qualify them as an independent student. If someone has a dependent, like they have a child that they're supporting, more than 50%, more than half of the financial support comes from you, then you might be considered an independent student. So those are kind of the main things that would qualify one as an
independent, just to clarify, independent student means that you wouldn't have to use your parents' information, but to qualify as an independent student, you would have to be over the age of 24, married, have a child, be a ward of the court, or military.
Absolutely,
right?
Yeah. And there are some other elements too, but those are the most common.
All right. Well, hey, you know, part of the problem that students are having is understanding the funding and connecting the cost of Neumont. So I wanted to see if you could talk to us a little bit about tuition here at Neumont and how that tuition is getting covered. You know, what steps are being taken for the students to be able to cover their cost?
You bet. So our website, thankfully, has a cost of the tuition and fees listed on it, and so that's where any of our students can go to look up some specifics about the costs. But essentially, we're talking just a little over $34,000 for your freshman year to cover everything. So we're talking tuition, required fees. We're talking about housing. Also is in that figure. We're talking about books and supplies, which also includes your laptop that's required here as well. So all of those things make up about $34,000. Now that doesn't mean that's
Okay.
what the student has to pay. That just means that's how much it costs. And then hopefully we have some of those scholarships and grants that will reduce that $34,000 number.
So it sounds like the $34,000 that have housing, and it sounds like maybe living costs. Is that
So
included in there
living
as well?
costs are one of those optional things. So if students need to have additional money so that
Uh-huh.
they can buy food and their personal items, toiletries, entertainment, maybe they want to go out and play a D&D on a Friday night or something like that and need some extra money, those things are considered living expenses, and you
Mm-hmm.
can include those in your funding plan up to a certain point. So we can't
Okay.
go above the maximums that are available. However, it's pretty common for our students to include those, and that would be extra.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm glad to hear that because I know that, coming up with housing expenses and things like that, that can be hard at times. And it sounds like that's something that you and your team help our students with, right?
You bet. That it can be a challenge, and for many individuals, this is their first time into it, and so they don't even know where to begin to start to cover these things. And so,
Yeah.
if we can share with them, hey, listen, we can cover everything that you need to be covered in some form or fashion in one of these financial aid options. That way, you really have minimal costs out of pocket that you have to worry about.
Awesome. Awesome. Love to hear that. Some of our students, when a student's coming in, I usually will discourage them from starting to work right away,
Oh yeah.
just because we do have a rigorous program. But I do know that we have a few options as far as student employment. Can you tell us a little bit about what possibilities are there for students if they absolutely have to work?
You bet. That's a question we get a lot. Can I work, or should I work, or how can I work when I'm in school? Because we've heard from our parents and maybe even our friends, those around us,
Mm-hmm.
hey, work while you're in school because that can really help
Yeah.
reduce the costs. But when you've got a really rigorous program like we
Mm-hmm.
have here at Neumont, it's very difficult to work and focus on your schooling and do well academically. And that's
Yeah.
the main focus. We want students to be zeroed in on their academics and not have to
Mm-hmm.
worry about that. That's one of the
Mm-hmm.
benefits of those living expenses that can come in. It can pay for those things that you would normally be working to pay for, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
your groceries and your personal expenses,
Mm-hmm.
things like that. Now the living expenses can cover those, so you don't have to work. But there are those that can. And
Okay.
so what we recommend is your freshman year that you really ought to take it easy, maybe not work that very first quarter to get your feet wet and really find out what the program is like and whether or not you can move through quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that first quarter, when you have some grades posted, you might actually be eligible for one of our on-campus positions, our student
Okay.
workers. And so we've got student worker positions in marketing. We've got them at the front desk or in the campus security and systems where they go
Oh.
around and open the classroom doors and unlock
Oh, I
them
didn't
and
know
check
that.
that kind of
Okay.
stuff. In IT, so they're helping out the other students with their computer issues. We've got a number of different options available for the
Mm-hmm.
students to work. But the one thing is, if you're working for us, you have to keep your grades up. And so freshmen, incoming students will ask, well, can I get one of those jobs? Well, not your very first term because you haven't posted any grades yet. So once those grades post, we can see how you're
Then they
doing,
can.
then you can interview for it.
Very nice.
Now, some of the students, they don't work on campus, they actually work off campus. So at the local grocery store or the coffee
Mm-hmm.
shop that's down the street, that kind of stuff. And that's okay too, but we want to keep it to a minimum.
Okay.
And our student advocates keep a really close eye on the students' academic performance when they're working
When they're
off
working.
campus.
Okay.
So, short answer, yes, there is work available. You can get a job and you can work while attending Neumont. Do we recommend it? Not in the financial aid office.
Okay.
But if you can pull it off, if you can get the good grades and work at the same time, then that's something that's an option for you.
All right. So I want to ask, if a student was to get a position here on campus and working for Neumont, does that go right into their financial plan, or do they get a paycheck? How does that work?
Yeah, so there are some elements out there. In fact, there's a type of aid called work study that some students ask about. And work study, if you're following the news, some institutions have it, some institutions don't. It's kind of an old program where if you're working, it actually goes right towards your tuition. We don't have that plan here at Neumont.
Okay.
And so any work that you're doing, you actually receive a W-2, in other words, the tax form that says, hey, you worked for us, you owe Uncle Sam some money, right, if you worked for us.
Okay.
And so you're going to have to report that on your taxes. But that's money that goes right into your account, or you receive it as a paycheck.
So it goes right to the student.
Yeah.
All right. So it sounds like, in your opinion, students coming in should really focus on their return on their investment. What is their education doing for them to get them successfully completed, and put that first before they, have to find a position to work and.
Absolutely. I mean, if you think about it, we've got a pretty large percentage of our students that have to use student loans, right? Probably over 85% of our students are using student loans to some degree during some period of time while they're here. And so that has to be repaid. The only way that that's going to be repaid over time is to have a good academic performance here so that you can graduate and get out there and get that $66,000 a year job right out of the gate.
Right out of the gate.
And so that's what we want. And if you can do that, the great thing is that our students who graduate here, their average time to repay their student loans is considerably less than the national average because of that. They're able to get their loans paid off in a shorter period of time.
All right. So what is the average loan debt for students that graduate from Neumont?
So if you take the average, meaning the low end and the high end, you're looking about $85,000 is the average student loan debt when you're done. So you've got your 4-year degree, you've got about 85 grand that needs to be paid off, and so you've got to have a job that can make the income, create the income for you so that you can make those payments and get it taken care of in 5 years, in 7 years. We even had a graduate pay their loans off that was even higher than that in 1 year.
In 1 year. Wow.
It's amazing what our graduates can do.
Amazing. Well, how soon would you advise students to start making loan payments once they've completed the program?
That's a great question, because you're not required to make loan payments while you're in school for most of the loan programs, right?
Okay.
And because of that, many students will opt to take that benefit, if you want to call it a benefit, and not make payments. Anytime a student or even a family member, maybe it's grandma that's helping cover the costs of education, no kidding. Anytime you can make payments towards your student loans, that's going to be that much better, because it's going to really reduce the interest that will have accumulated over time. And that's important.
Like that. Well, thank you, Nate. I sure appreciate it. Well, one other question that I have for you, and it can be a little bit confusing for students, because here at Neumont, we do a bachelor's degree in 3 years.
Right.
Okay. So we're taking a 4-year degree and we're putting in a 3-year time frame. So what is the difference between an academic year and a calendar year?
That's a great question, and that can cause some confusion, because we think about the local university or the local college, right? And they're on a semester system.
Yeah.
Everybody's heard of semesters. So when you attend a college or university with on a semester calendar, you have the fall semester, then you have the spring semester traditionally, right?
Yeah.
Those 2 semesters, that's your freshman year, and then you go on your summer break. So that time that you're in school, though, before the summer break, that's a 9-month period of time. And that's what an academic year is. It's different from a calendar year. Calendar year, of course, 12 months, right?
12 months, yeah.
But the academic year is 9 months. Now, it can be confusing because we're on a quarter calendar. If you just remember, though, that it's the same 9-month period of time, it equals 3 quarters instead of 2 semesters. It's exactly the same time frame.
Okay.
But then we begin our next year, so we immediately begin our sophomore year instead of going on summer break. That's how we're finishing a 4-year degree in 3 years.
Nice. So those of us that get a little bit lost as we start getting the funding together and working on that quarter basis, you'll be there to help us with that, right?
Absolutely, and that's a definition that we have to go over several times because it can be a tough one to understand.
All right. Well, thank you. You know, something that I was curious about, because we have classes starting this fall, when is the funding deadline?
That's a great question. So right now we're trying to get everybody's funding in by the end of this month. So the end of July 30th, we want to have all the funding in and ready to go so that students don't have to worry about it the next couple of months. And when they get out here this fall, they can hit the ground running and they're not concerned about their funding. So we're trying to get everything done here in the next 2.5 weeks about.
2.5 weeks. So what if I'm a student and I don't know where I'm at in the process with my funding? What should I do?
First thing that you should do is contact your financial aid advisor.
Okay.
And the financial aid advisors, they've been assigned based on alphabet. And you should have already received contact if you're planning to start this fall from your financial aid advisor. If not, you can just call our general financial aid line. And we'll be able to get you hooked up with the right financial aid advisor and tell you exactly where you are in the process and what is left.
Okay, beautiful. And just for those of you who do not know who your financial aid advisor is, you can call our direct general number that Nate was talking about. That's 801-888-1300. And what was the email address for that?
It's financialaid@neumont.edu.
Okay, pretty simple. financialaid@neumont.edu.
That's right.
Okay. All right. And then if anyone is still considering applying for Neumont, if you're trying to get in for this fall 2018 year, get your applications in right away. We do have a rolling committee. We will review your application and let you know if you're accepted or not. So if you're trying to do it, get in right away. We are currently accepting applicants for our 2019 year as well.
Yep, that started already. Can you believe that?
It's coming, I know.
So, yeah.
It's amazing. So that deadline, our early application deadline for 2019, is going to be October 22nd of this year.
So right before Halloween,
Right before Halloween.
All right.
Yep. And then to get started, go to Neumont.edu/apply, right? Is that what it is?
I believe so,
Okay.
yeah.
And if you're not sure, go on to Neumont.edu, find the admissions tab, and you'll find the drop-down menu for apply.
You bet.
Right.
And we are excited to have everyone out this fall, and we're excited for all the new applicants for 2019 as well.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Nate. Thanks for coming today
Absolutely.
and being here. And
It's good to be with you.
I think we've got all the questions answered. I'll double check, but I think we're
If anyone has
good.
any other questions, just contact us. You can call the general line or email financialaid@neumont.edu, and we will take care of you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks.